the people you do not want in your life. Number one is the naysayer, the complainer, the victim, the pretender, the abuser. And the last one is the psycho, and the people you absolutely need in your life. Number one, that starts with the cheerleader. Number two, you need the optimist. Number three, the Robin to your Batman. So if you're chasing excellence, you're Batman. Number four, the accountability officer. And number five, the example. All right. So this is the inaugural podcast on adversity and success. And the subject today is the people you do not want in your life and the people you absolutely need in your life. This is a list of people that I've sort of accumulated over the course of my life. And I actually reference this quite often. And I compare people who come in and out of my life to these various personalities. This list is in the vein, I wanted to start with, I've been reading this book called The Unplugged Alpha by a guy named Rich Cooper. He's a Canadian entrepreneur. He has a YouTube channel called Entrepreneurs in Cars. Let me start by saying I'm not a red pill guy. So if you don't know red pill masculinity or whatever, I don't know what they call the environment, but I've been reading this guy's book. I saw he's a bald guy with a beard, and he's come through like on YouTube Shorts a couple of times, and he's got, on the business side, I love a lot of the things that he references on the business side. And in fact, I'll show you his channel here real quick. So he's an entrepreneur, serial entrepreneur, and I actually like a lot of what he says. As it relates to entrepreneurs. So let me switch here. There you go. So this is Rich Cooper right here. And his channel is like, this is the clips of his longer form stuff. And he is a guy who basically talks about three subjects. Number one, how to become a better man. Like how to be a man who pursues excellence, chases excellence, prioritizes excellence, right? He talks about women and relationships, and then he talks about business. I mean, those are really the three subjects he talks about. I love the stuff he talks about, entrepreneurial related stuff, especially when he's talking about like inbound marketing. I like that kind of stuff. And he talks about the reasons he doesn't like hiring people, for example. That's another thing. I enjoy that content. So I stumbled across him by accident. Anyway, he's always plugging his book called The Unplugged Alpha. And in that book, this is called Red Pill Masculinity, and it's like unplugging from the feminist world and this kind of thing. But, let me say, I don't agree with, there are a lot of things I agree with him on. Especially on the business side. On the women's side, I definitely disagree with him on a lot of stuff. But anyway, I'm reading his book, and because he plugs it all the time, so I want a better context. And I just read through the chapter of, it's like red flags in women that he brings up. Now, I read this as red flags in anybody. This isn't just red flags in women, but these are red flags in people that you want to avoid in life, not just in women, but in his book he really attributes this to women. A couple of these can only apply to women, right? So number one, he says you should avoid women who have daddy issues, right? That's a red flag, right? Number two, he says you should avoid feminists. Well, feminists are not just females, they're also males. I agree, you should avoid feminists. Number three, he says you should avoid the unhappy and unlucky, right? That seems sound to me. what I've always wondered is, do the unhappy and unlucky define themselves as unhappy and unlucky? Or do they blame everyone else for their unhappiness and their lack of love, which is what I think the bigger issue is. He says you should avoid people who compete with you. He says if she competes with you. I would argue you should avoid people in general who have an unhealthy competition with you. That is, they're competing with you to not to make each of you better, both of you better, to push, but to push you down. She keeps men from her past around. I would argue that you really shouldn't hang out with people who hold on to the past with a iron grip. Okay. Number 6, he says, people who are, women who are poor with money. You should avoid people who are poor with money. Okay. There's no question about it. Rich is also the guy who says, if you hang out with 5 losers, you're going to become the 6th. It's the same concept here. The poor with money has nothing to do with whether or not people are rich. It has to do with whether or not they have discipline. You should avoid people who don't have discipline. People who are poor with money don't have discipline. You should avoid violent women. I believe you should avoid violent people. Extreme jealousy goes both ways. I agree you should avoid it. Party girls. I agree. You should avoid people who prioritize partying over chasing excellence. Because all partying is how some people say religion is the opium of the masses. I would argue partying is the opium of the masses. And it's just as dangerous. Heavily tattooed and pierced women goes both ways. I think men who are heavily tattooed and pierced are also sending you the signal that you should avoid. Big notch counts. So I think he's talking about how many people they slept with. This one I definitely agree with him on. But I don't know if it applies to men too. And that just has to do with, I'll have that conversation later. But sorry, I'm getting over a cold still. Number 12, red flag, single mothers. Yeah, I don't think you should raise other people's kids. I think the parents of those kids should raise those kids. Women seeking validation. You should avoid people who are seeking validation. And what that indicates is an unhealthy self-esteem that they have, a lack of self-esteem. That they will eventually blame you for. Being a sugar baby or being a pathological liar. You should avoid those, obviously. All people, not just women. People who throw hissy fits. Not being in control of the birth. Not sure. Drama queens. And number 20 is addictions. So my point here is, and I'm going to talk about the 6 people you should avoid, you keep out of your life at all costs, and the 5 people you need to have in your life. And I would like to call this your stable. Okay? This is your inner circle. Okay? And more than a person can make up more than one of these personalities. But this list is in the vein of Rich Cooper's 20 red flags that he has in his book called The Unplugged Alpha. Let me just say I actually like the book quite a bit. There's a lot in there I disagree with, but I actually like it a lot. This is not an endorsement of the book, but if you want to check it out, you can. I think he has on Amazon or whatever, and I'll put a link to his channel in the video here. All right, so let's go ahead and get started with the 6 people you shouldn't have in your life. Okay, the 6 people. The personality number 1 that you need to avoid at all costs. So these are the people you need to get out of your life. Number 1 is the naysayer. All right. The naysayer is the person saying something negative doesn't make you a naysayer. Okay. But all naysayers say things negative. The naysayer is the person who defaults to the glass being half empty, right? There's 2 types of people in the world. There are those who see the glass as half full and those who see the glass as half empty. right? The naysayer is the person who sees the glass as half empty. And they're trying to convince you the glass is half empty. Okay? The naysayer is the person who doesn't give you reasonable criticism about your ideas. They just give you criticism about your ideas. The problem with the naysayer is that the naysayer is never going to give you an objective analysis about your ideas, your feelings, your decisions. They're always going to give you an analysis that skews towards the negative. And the problem with that is that by default, human beings are more critical of themselves than most other people around them are. And so you have enough criticism and negativity in your head that you don't need more from people who can't give it to you in equal amounts positivity, equal amounts negativity. Okay? So person number one you absolutely have to keep out of your life is the naysayer. For a lot of people, in my talks with professionals, for a lot of people, this is a parent who is constantly shooting down your dreams. You know what I mean? One of the things I talk with my kids about all the time, and also my colleagues, is everyone should chase their dream. You got to start by defining that dream, okay? And you before you take the first step chasing your dream, know what your contingency plan is. What is your backup? What the biggest mistake anyone can make is to go all in on their dream and not have a fallback plan. Okay? Even if that fallback plan is just moving back in with my mom and dad. You got to know, this is a great lesson for life in general, you got to have a strategy, to back out and refocus on something else. Okay? You should follow your dreams. The naysayers are always going to tell you not to. Okay? So you need the naysayers out of your life. They sneak up on you. All right? So ask yourself, who do I have in my life that I would define as a naysayer? And then figure out a way to get them out of your life. All right, number 2, the complainer. All right? And again, remember, a person can take up a couple of these personalities. All right, the complainer is the person. Now, this isn't someone who has an objection about something. This isn't a person who comes home and complains about their day, or what this is a person who complains, who is unreasonable about the things that they complain about. That is, no rational person is going to have a complaint about that subject, about that situation, right? The complainer is the person who no longer is now being negative toward you. They're just being negative in general, okay? The complainer is the person who just broadcasts negativity everywhere. The naysayer is the person who broadcasts negativity to you. That's a ridiculous idea, or your dreams, that dream's not achievable. You can't afford that. All those types of things, right? The complainer is the person who just projects negativity. They find fault in everything, okay? Now, you'll see this, the complainer personality, you'll see it in, like, people who are manic, right? Or they seem almost bipolar, right? When they're in their down, all they're doing is complaining. And when they're up, all they're doing is celebrating. So that's a different type of person, okay? But the complainer is the person who finds fault with everything. And it becomes pretty apparent fairly quickly that their criticisms are not reasonable. They are not rational. Okay? Person number 3. This is probably the most important person to keep out of your life. Well, not the most important, but the second most important. The victim. All right? So the victim is the person who never takes responsibility for their own outcomes. They are the person who blames everyone else for their situation. Okay? They have the victim mindset, right? So whether they have a reason to claim victim status or whether they don't, they still find a way to claim victim status. All right. So this is the the girlfriend who cheats on you. And when you ask her, why weren't you loyal to me? And she says, because you looked at that girl who walked by on the sidewalk, you looked at her butt or something. Or, you forgot to send my mom a birthday card. And so I was depressed and I went out and I, met somebody and hooked up with them. The victim is the person who will do everything in their power to say, it's not my fault that I'm in the situation that I'm in. It's somebody else's fault. All right. You got to cut those out of your life immediately. Okay. You don't allow people to make excuses. You don't allow people around you. If you want to be successful, you want to achieve success. If you want to use discipline, respect, hard work, you want to use your values and beliefs to make good decisions that lead to good outcomes, get more outcomes over the course of your life, right? To live a meaningful life. These are the details here. This is the, your inner circle. These are the people you cannot have in your life. Okay. You've got to cut them off like a cancer. Okay. And these might be members of your family. These might be, people you work with, people you've been friends with for years and years and years. It might be a person you've been in a long-term relationship with. But, these are absolute truths. All right. Number 4, the pretender. All right. So the pretender is the person there. I like to call this the chameleon, right? This is the person who doesn't think for themselves at all. Like what they do is they assume the thinking of the people around them, the personalities of the people around them, as opposed to having a meaningful thought and personality of their own. Right? The pretender is the person you take to a party who pretends that everyone in the room is their best friend. And they pretend to be excited to see every person they come in contact with. All right? Here's the problem with the pretender. There's nothing sincere about a pretender. Okay? And in order to be a pretender, you've got to be an outstanding liar. All right? And so being a great pretender, faking sincerity and intimacy, translates into being an excellent liar. Rich Cooper calls it the pathological liar. I call it the pretender because it's a broader brushstroke. Okay, the pretenders in your life are the people who are going to sneak up on you when you least expect it. Okay, it's hard to identify who a pretender is. This is why believing people's actions and not listening to their words means so much. There's the old adage, when someone shows you who they are with their actions, believe them. Okay, and that's never more true than when you're dealing with the pretender. Right. All right. Number 5, the abuser. All right. What is an abuser? Okay. An abuser is a person who hurts you on purpose most of the time to make themselves feel better about their own pain. Okay? An abuser is hurting someone doesn't make you an abuser, right? You can inflict pain on someone in a short term, and I don't mean physical pain, I mean emotional pain. You can challenge someone, you can say something that's going to cut like a knife with someone. It's going to hurt them in the short term. They're going to feel a little bit of pain for long-term growth, right? You're dealing with an abuser when the things that they say to you, it is clear that all they're trying to do is hurt you. They're not pulling a veil back. They're not, you need someone who's going to tell you the truth, give you some tough love. You need that. And people giving you tough love are not abusers. Abusers are trying to hurt you. And the goal is to hurt you. Most of the time, not because they're evil, but because they have their own pain that they are trying to work through and they are pushing out onto you. Okay? You can't save an abuser. Can't save them. Okay? They're going to suck the life right out of you. All right? Cut them out of your life. I mean, number one, anybody who's physically abusive with you, get rid of them to begin with. You're a sucker if you stay with somebody who's physically abusive. Now, it's. I think some people, what they'll do is, instead of, I'll never stay with an abuser. So what they'll do is not define you as an abuser, right? Rather than, if you ask them, would you stay with an abuser? They'll say no. But in order, their workaround, their out is, that person who's abusing me is not an abuser, right? You need to cut the abusers out of your life. Why? Because all they're doing is transferring their internal pain that they're taking out on you through abuse into your internal pain. Okay? You can't chase excellence in that environment. All right? And the last one is the psycho. All right? And this obviously should go without saying. Here's the problem with the psycho. This is the most important one. The psycho is hard to see coming. The psycho can be charming. The psycho can be charismatic. The psycho can be lots of fun. The psycho can be functioning. But the way you reveal a psycho is through stressors. And life will do this on its own. All right. The psycho is the one who cries when they should be laughing. They laugh when they should be crying. The psycho who is the one who swings from one emotion to the other, where their actions don't line up. They don't line up with the reality, with the environment that they're in. All right. The problem with the psycho is that there's nothing rational about a psycho. And so you, as the rational person, the rational male, the rational female, the rational being, cannot rationalize a functioning relationship with a psycho. All right? So if you have naysayers, complainers, victims, pretenders, abusers, and psychos in your life, I guarantee you that they are contributing to you achieving the outcomes that you want in your life. They are contributing to keeping you, inhibiting you from achieving those outcomes. Right? Here's an analogy that I like to use. So you see there's a ladder right there against that wall. Okay? That ladder is there for a reason. I keep that ladder in my office studio to remind me of where it came from. Growing up poor is like growing up in a 10-foot deep hole with 2 feet of mud on the bottom of it. Crammed in there with a bunch of other people. Okay? And there's a lot of things that those people in that hole have in common. Okay? Got a lot of naysayers in there. You got a lot of complainers, a lot of victims, a lot of pretenders, a lot of abusers, a lot of psychos. Social mobility is like having a ladder to climb out of that hole. Okay? You generally do that through education, through self-improvement, through the pursuit of excellence. Okay? While you're climbing up that ladder, all right, the people in that hole are trying to hold you back. They're trying to pull you back down. Not necessarily for themselves to get on that ladder, but because they don't want to see someone else succeed. Right? The movies portray it as, we want to celebrate one of ours making it. That's not my experience. When you grow up poor, people don't want to see people. There are two types of people that don't want to see you succeed: your peers and the parents of the affluent who end up behind you in the race. Like no affluent parent wants to see some poor kid move 6, 7, 8 rungs up the ladder and finish ahead of their affluent kid. Okay, so you got that group of people in the mud pit, right? That are holding you back. Those are the 6 type of people you don't want in your life. Okay, those 6 types of people are also up on dry ground. Okay, so when you climb up out of that mud pit, and you finally release those people who are holding you back down there, you're going to find a bunch of them on the ground, up on the dry land, are going to try to hold you down too. And here's the analogy I use. I'm all covered in mud. I'm in that mud pit, and everybody's nice, clean and dry up on up on dry land. And I climb up the ladder and I get out. And what happens is slowly the mud starts to dry. And I flake it off and I get, clean myself off. And now what I'm doing is I'm standing there, a little dusty, a little muddy, but I'm on dry land. I'm on equal footing with those I'm trying to become equal footing on. But I've got this coating, this remnants of where I came from on me. They can see it. I can feel it. Okay? There are also lessons I learned while I was down in that hole, or personality traits I picked up that I also project in my new world, right? And then then you'll discover there are naysayers up there on dry land too. Naysayers and complainers, etc. And you got to identify them, and you got to cut them out of your life. And then you move further up the ladder, right? Now, avoiding these types of people are critical. It's a very critical skill. It takes bravery, takes commitment. There's a lot of people who put up with these types of personalities out of expediency. The idea of cutting a sibling out of your life, or moving on from a partner, or moving on from a business partner, or firing an employee, or disowning a child, for example. It's a tough decision to make for most people, right? So avoiding these people is one key to achieving success, overcoming adversity and achieving success. But you also have to build a team made up, your stable, that's going to help, your Peloton, if you will, right? The group of people who are going to help assist you in achieving your goals. You're going to do most of it on your own, but you're going to need like-minded individuals, certain personalities around you, okay, to help you along at key moments, right? Number one, that starts with the cheerleader, okay? So the cheerleader is the opposite of the naysayer. The cheerleader is the person who believes you can do anything, okay? And they let you know it. They never seem shocked when you talk to them about an idea you have. In fact, they seem intrigued. They're the person who injects excitement into you when you bounce an idea off of them. Okay? Everyone needs the cheerleader. You got to have the person who believes you can achieve anything. Okay? Oftentimes that starts with you. It starts with, I believe I can achieve anything. And then you pick up the cheerleader along the way. All right? So that's person number one you got to have. All right. Number two, you need the optimist. Now, the cheerleader is focused on believing you individually can do anything. But the optimist is the person who believes that anything is possible. Right? The optimist, like the complainer, projects widely. Right? The complainer just complains into the room. Right? The optimist is optimistic into the room. They're the ones who says the glass is always half full. The optimist is the person who's always able to find the silver lining in any situation. Okay? The optimist is a really, really critical component of your stable. It's the personality that you go to when you think your idea is the most ridiculous. Okay. Number three, the Robin to your Batman. So if you are pursuing excellence, if you're chasing excellence, you're Batman. And Batman needs a Robin. Robin is a superhero in his own right. But he has, I don't want to say taken a back seat, but has chosen to ride shotgun with Batman for two reasons. Number one, to transfer his strength to Batman's goals, and number two, to have Batman's back at all costs. That relationship, that Robin and Batman relationship, is foundational on Robin trusting Batman's judgment, right? And they work together to achieve more than just the sum of their parts, right? You know who Robin is because Robin in the vernacular is your ride or die, okay? And this could be a friend, it could be a love interest, it could be a partner, right? It could be a sibling, but it's your ride or die. It's the person you would define as your ride or die, okay? Number 4, the most important of all the people you need in your life, the accountability officer, okay? The accountability officer is the person who holds you accountable to your values, your beliefs, your virtues, and your choices, okay? The accountability officer, by default, has to share common values and beliefs with you, has to share common virtues, and has to you have to agree on what the best choice is for optimal outcomes. The accountability officer is the voice in your ear, steering you in the right direction at your weakest moments. The accountability officer is also the one who is not going to enable you making choices or behaving in a way that is going to derail you from chasing or pursuing excellence. Okay? Incredibly critical personality you need to have in your stable. And number 5, the example. Most people call this the mentor or mentors. The example is basically, even if you're an A+ personality, A+ alpha, A+ alphas, they have mentors who are past their prime who are also A+ alphas. The example is the person or persons, so there could also be a virtual example that's a combination of several people, that you are modeling your steps on, right? The example, the biggest role that the example plays is as a sounding board for your greatest dilemmas. So when I'm facing a dilemma, a tough situation where I got 2 choices and both of them are bad outcomes, the example is the person you go to. The mentor is the one you go to for guidance on how to make your decision. Okay? You know, these 11 personality traits I've had this in a notebook for probably 20 years, since the beginning of my career. And every time most of the time my relationships are built really organically. I just like click with somebody, I click with a guy, I click with a girl, I click with a colleague, and I just sort of go with it. And I kind of see where it goes, and then I evaluate. I'll be like, okay, so where does this person fit? Are they one of the 6 people I need to not have around me, or are they one of the 5 people I need to have around me? And if they are one of the 5 people I need to have around me, which personality traits do they fit into? Just like the same thing, if they're one of the 6 I need to get rid of, which personality traits do they fit into, right? You have people who can have personality traits from the 6 people you need to cut out of your life, and from one of the 5 people you need to keep in your life. And that, my friend, is called a dilemma, okay? And that's when you go to your example to find out what you should do. What I want you to do is this, okay? The call to action here is, how do you choose the types of people you surround yourself with? Like, do you have a mechanism, or do you just go with it? Is it like a gut thing? Do you have standards that you're using to decide whether a person is someone who should be in your life, not in your life, someone who should be in your inner circle, not in your inner circle? If you don't have standards, ask this question. Why not? Why is it you don't have those standards? And then ask yourself, should I develop some? Right? Would it help if I just take what Walker's saying here, the 11 that he has, and started applying that to my relationships starting tomorrow? Right? What I'd like you to do is, in the comments below, are there any personality traits I missed? Okay. Now, obviously, the lover is one that people are going to say you should have a lover. The Robin to your Batman and the cheerleader, the lover falls underneath those two. There are many personalities you could list off. Before you list one off, see if it would fit in one of the 11 that already exist as a sub-trait of that personality. But I'd love to hear personalities that you have in your standards that you include in the people that you cut out of your life and those that you keep in your life. And I'd love to feedback on what you think about this format, which is a little different. What the next podcast, I wanted to do this podcast like this. The next podcast that we do is going to be, I'm going to have Zach on, and we're going to have a conversation about family and relationships, probably next week. So with that, it would be great if you would like, subscribe, share this video with somebody who could benefit from it. I mean, we all have people in our lives who surround themselves with the wrong people. Share this video with someone who you think might benefit from it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.